what do you think of this?
This is genuinely horrible.
Whether you're a ChatGPT enthusiast or a self-proclaimed technophobe, AI is undeniably becoming more and more prevalent in more aspects of our lives. And for us here at Fully Charged, that raises an interesting question. How is AI influencing the realm of electric vehicles? Could it take charge in their future design or unearth the next wave of groundbreaking innovations? Could anyone envision a car? Could I, for instance, design the next electric car? Welcome to the Fully Charged Show.
Love the Fully Charged Show? Join us live in Canada this September, the South in October, and Australia and London in 2025.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there are two ways to create something. You do take stuff that exists and you bring it together, and it might be experiences, it might be physical entities, and that's most of the time how most designers work. They're being influenced by other areas and you bring it together and create something new. However, I think there's something much deeper than that. If you want to be really original, you have to create something from within, an atmosphere and a feeling.
In order to put this to the test, I have designed a car using AI, and I'm going to take that design to automotive design legend Ian Callum, who's perhaps best known for the Ford RS200, the Aston Martin DB9, the Vanquish, a whole bunch of Jaguars, including the I-Pace and the F-Type. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, let's define AI. So when we say AI, we mean artificial intelligence, which, according to this, encompasses various techniques allowing machines to mimic cognitive functions such as learning, problem solving, perception, and decision making. So in order to make my designs, I used a tool called Viscom, which is a generative AI tool. And there are various other tools out there. Midjourney is possibly the one that most people have heard of. And what I did was take various aspects of cars that I like, such as the Rivian R3, the Ioniq 5, the Renault 5, Porsche 964 RSR, the Citroen AX GTI, and kind of put various bits of those together using some extremely crude Photoshop. In fact, I wouldn't even call it Photoshop, it was sophisticated cropping. Now, digital tools are by no means new to the realm of automotive design. They have been around for quite some time, but what is new is this generative component. And it makes me think that in this new era, what does it take to become a designer? Do you need any real expertise? Is your imagination enough? Do you even need to be able to sketch? Well, I put these questions to Ali from the Umea Institute of Design in Sweden, an incredible design university where many famous automotive designers first honed their craft. Do automotive design students actually need to be any good at sketching in this day and age? Is that an out-of-date skill?
No, it's not about outdated skills at all, because there's something that we're discussing normally with the team here, Umea Institute of Design, that there's a level of intimacy that comes with with your sketches. So you start with your students as a teacher, you start recognizing each sketches, but also the level of, for example, of emotional part of that, or if a student really wants to searching for something. And that analog feeling is not just something nostalgic, it's something that brings materiality and physicality to it.
So your students now, how are they working with AI? And what are some of the common conversations that you have? For example, I'm imagining that there are certain students who are like, come on, I know that you used AI there, or, ooh, have you thought about kind of streamlining your work processes in other areas?
One student that created immediately it was imagining a 20-year, far in the future type of project, so a little bit more visionary. And in the first review, it immediately created an entire environment which we could place ourselves in, we could immediately immerse ourselves into. And that is very powerful. So there's kind of this landscape creation that really can foster new visions. If you need to create, for example, you need to rethink mobility, and you can take a picture of a street and then, okay, what it could look like in 20 years from now. You can do that now in an hour, even less, with a little bit of refinement, something that it wasn't possible before. So that is an interesting uncharted territory, and that how few students are already taking and inspiring others. So they're kind of pioneering themselves into this.
And actually, I guess as creatives, there's a responsibility to lasso these various tools that exist and to harness them and to use them as kind of a co-pilot, not something that's charting a path which you don't have that sense of control over.
As long as it doesn't freeze us from the exploratory mindset, that is a key. And so for students and for upcoming students, current students, but new like early professionals as well in entering the job field, learn those tools, but do not offset your imagination to those tools. That's the critical thinking that I really, really wish to, not just to my students, but to all students in design, that they really, and other disciplines as well, that they really think that way, to find their own way to like still feel the intentionality in the design process still theirs.
So maybe we shouldn't offset our imagination to AI tools, but we could use them to harness our imagination, to translate what's in our minds and make it more understandable to a separate audience, a super powerful aid for subjective topics. But when it comes to objective things where we enjoy rigid parameters, such as vehicle efficiency or vehicle safety, maybe that's where AI truly shines. But data is arguably engineers' lifeblood, and surely, given that automotive companies have existed for decades doing thousands upon thousands of iterations and tests, there must be vast troves of data waiting for AI to unearth new insights. Well, I caught up with Richard from Monolith, whose company are trying to do exactly that.
Monolith is a machine learning software company. So we built a cloud-based software platform that allows battery experts to build machine learning models on whatever data they get off their sensors, off their battery test stands, to forecast what happens with the battery in a future scenario, to figure out what they need to test, and to potentially find anomalies in their test data.
So what's the sort of penny drop moment when you pitch this to an automotive company? Is there a kind of aha moment where they're like, that's where this can really, really make a huge difference to our business?
So in principle, battery labs have three problems that create these sort of aha moments. The first problem is that if you're running a battery lab these days, you have between 50 and 5,000 channels. Running each channel costs approximately $1,000 per month. So you can imagine they're spending a lot of money on tests. And it's very, very tricky to figure out what battery test should I actually run to sort of make the most of my time and money. And I think sometimes one of the aha moments is when you explain to people that a battery test is a little bit like playing chess, right? You have only a limited amount of moves that you can do in order to win and get to your final result. And computers are really, really good at games with rules where you can make a limited amount of moves. And so when you tell them, hey, look, your battery is just like a chess game, and you can train this chess computer that can help you. And then you remind them of the last time they played a computer at chess and ask them how that went. Then they usually go like, aha, so this is something where a computer could really help me accelerate my test plan and what moves I need to do in order to understand my battery behavior.
The other thing I'm intrigued about is that I imagine there's a bit of a journey that an engineer who starts using Monolith goes on, in that initially they're like, I don't want to change what I'm doing. I'm a good and proficient engineer. I have a system that works. It's annoying to learn a new tool. And then they adopt it. And then they're like, oh, maybe I take some of that back. This has actually made my life substantially easier. What's the sort of emotional journey that you observe with some of your customers and end users?
The amount of discussions I'm in where they're like, we had neural networks in the 70s and 80s. We don't need them now. They don't really change anything. You can sort of build cars the way we've always built them is quite overwhelming. But then you have a couple of chats and you need to show them concrete examples, which often boil down to, so all this does is it trains a little self-learning model that predicts my next test. Or, all this does is it looks at sensor data and automatically finds thermal runaway. And if you can show them that machine learning models can do these things faster and more accurately, because we have more data now, and we can process much bigger amounts of data than in the past, then I feel like the penny drops and they realize, okay, you need to take the AI hype from the news away and really focus on specific problems for which you know and you can quickly prove that machine learning is better.
So by using existing data and leveraging AI, it allows engineers to identify the tests that they should be focusing on. It allows them to be way more strategic and actually frees them up to focus on the stuff where they can really, really capitalize on their expertise. making sure that they can explore a vaster realm of stuff within narrow bounds. And in that sense, AI isn't reductive, it becomes way more expansive. And ultimately, that's what this is all about, finding new solutions in the most efficient and robust manner possible. But when it comes to developing electric vehicles, we can't decouple them from the grid and energy management. So can AI help in this regard?
It's a really interesting question. So a lot of people think about EV charging as very much a hardware business. You get a box, you get a wall box on your wall, you charge your car at home. That's really, really great. One of the things that maybe isn't quite so known is that from a grid perspective, from an energy distribution perspective, what EV charging can add as a major supplement is that degree of visibility. It's just informing the grid. Where's consumption happening? At what rates? How much of that is solar energy? And so the power of that is being able to really reduce the cost of electricity. So from a grid perspective, we're just not really designed to cope with something that's dynamic and live and having 7.4 kilowatts or potentially more in every home. And the benefit of Hypervolt is that every device, every given day, will stream between 80 and 100,000 different events. It'll record about 170 different telemetries, and it's things like voltage, amperage, grid frequencies. And we use all that data, the power of all that data, to understand the customer very intimately. Do they have storage? Do they have solar panels? When do they need their car charged by? What is their average consumption pattern? How big is their battery? And putting all these things together enables us to build a very sophisticated data and AI model that we can then feed back to the grid. We can feed back to people like OVO Energy or Octopus Energy, and together we build a much more dynamic, sophisticated experience.
What kind of insights are you actually drawing, and how is sort of AI unearthing some of those insights?
First of all, AI is a big misnomer nowadays because everyone knows about ChatGPT. I think we're talking about a little bit different kind of AI machine learning in the case of the Hypervolt system. So UltraGrid, the cloud operating system that we promote, effectively is an enormous data gatherer. And as an EV charging manufacturer, there's huge pressure on cost. So to make all of this happen, I think the biggest enabler, the biggest part of AI is just actually making it very affordable. Because if we ship a box to someone, so if we install a wall box, then we have this huge ongoing data cost. That doesn't really make it sustainable for the business to continue operating in this space. So a lot of our focus is how do we get the maximum amount of data for the lowest amount of cost consistently? What data do we gather? Anything to do with consumption patterns, anything that helps us overlay, it's a sunny day tomorrow. You've got this size of a solar array in your home. So we think, you should be able to self-generate 60% of your energy next Tuesday. Based on that information, based on your average consumption pattern for a Tuesday, we can now begin to really predict what's going to happen ahead. And we can be really, really fine-grained with it and really give the best experience to the end customer, because we don't want to disrupt anybody. We don't want anybody waking up with an empty battery, or maybe they don't have enough. And equally, we want to maximize the amount of energy the grid can ship, right? We want to maximize the return on investment for infrastructure that's being made.
AI has the ability to really help with grid management, stability and reliability, things which are going to become even more important as we move towards an ever more flexible grid, thanks to things like more intermittent resources, distributed sources and things like virtual power plants. We've just heard many ways in which AI, or to be more precise, machine learning, can be used in the development of technologies surrounding electric cars. But can it design them? Well, at the start of the episode, I set myself a challenge to design a car using generative AI. And now it is time to show Ian and Aleck the finished product. So, here we go. Got a couple of things to show you, but I think I'm going to start with my favourite one. Now this is, well, I'll see if you can recognise it, but what do you think of this? That's not a good laugh.
It's hilarious. It's a cartoon car. The form language is completely different. Yeah. You've got a form language, you've got a statement there which kind of in itself works. Then you've got the Porsche form language at the back, which in itself works. We all know very well. Mm-hmm. But the two together do not work and never will work.
But then that's where I think this is really interesting, because that is a totally subjective thing through your sort of, expertise. So why, is there a way that you can express that in words, why the two form languages don't go together?
Yeah, because when I'm thinking about a car design, I think about a totality, and that's actually one of the strengths of what I do. I can edit well when we're going through a design process and get a totality where the whole object looks as one. That's very important to me, because when you're about 200 yards away, 200 meters away, you'll be able to look at that object and see it as one, regardless of the details. That to me is called the draftsmanship of it. That is drawing the composition in the picture. And if you don't do that correctly, it will never be right.
I think this one may give you the biggest nightmares. I absolutely adore the original Citroën DS. I also have recently seen the Renault R5, which is also quite a nostalgic design, particularly at the rear. So those were my two sources of inspiration. And again, ignoring some of the funny
both French.
things, both French, maybe that's where the similarities stop. But
yeah, it's like a contradiction in statement, really. The 5 is a very clunky, a very positive shape, but it's about squatness. It has a cuteness about it. And the DS is all about aerodynamic feel. The guy that went out to design the DS had this intention of creating something that floats through the air beautifully. And it is beautiful as a result. It's very pure. The DS is really about a functional car that seats 4 or 5 people in a very functional manner, very matter of fact. And it has a beauty for that, but they're two very different beauties.
so is there a way that you are using AI to lasso your imagination and bring it to life?
At the moment, it's a rendering tool more than anything else. It's not a three-dimensional thing. However, you must never lose control of what you're doing. I remember when the days of Alias appeared and we were 3D modeling.
And Alias is a 3D
Alias is a
modelling
3D
tool,
modeling software. So designers started to model in 3D. And what I found was they were beholden to the capability of the Alias, structure. And they were creating objects which they would not have created by themselves because the tool was telling them what to do. You must never, ever let that happen.
What would your advice be then to, say, a 17-year-old who wants to be an automotive designer or a designer in general? Should they be hopeful about the future that maybe exists for them within this field?
One of my worries is for the younger designers, the ones who are in university. I mean, university isn't so far away from me that I remember the late nights and the last-minute deadlines, and I worry that AI might become almost a get-out-of-jail-free card. And as we were discussing at the start, a lot of this we could take, and using a lot of the skills that I've learned over the years, we could turn into what is perceived as a good design and capturing all that lovely form language. But if going into university and if going into a car design job, your default is using AI immediately without picking up the ability to sketch or the ability to, whether it's Photoshop, whether it's 3D, any of those things, but ability to take the AI output and put in your own input and really capture that human element, then I'd worry along that route. But no, I do think I'm still sort of the belief that this will become a really powerful tool going forward for all designers, so long as there is a tangible way to recapture the human input back into whatever the output is.
Yeah, I think the one thing that does concern me is imagery is very powerful, as we know, as we see it in social media all the time. It's very powerful. A lot of it's fake. And with all respect to your images, these cars don't exist. They are fake. But it takes the unknowledgeable, dare I say it, the bosses of a business to say, well, that's good enough for me, so why do we need designers? And they do, because someone will come along and design a better one because they've thought about it, and it doesn't just come from an image. And I think there's a danger these images are taken too literally by people who are in control of a business or car industry and say that's good enough. That's fine, because it's not. It's not good enough. I'm not saying this to protect our position in the world. I'm saying this because I believe we can do better through thought and through understanding, through emotions.
So So fear not, automotive designers, I am not here to steal your job anytime soon, but it is clear that AI is here to expedite and catapult our skills into new realms. Without generative AI, there is no way that I could have produced any of these designs, but with it, I at least have something that I'm kind of happy to put on my fridge. So just think what it can do in the hands of real experts. That said, we are on an exponential trajectory. And as such, we have to be very clear about how we can lead the tools and set the direction and not be led by them, such that we can continue to value human craft and expertise. So what happens next? Let us know what you think in the comments.